This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in California. I am here with the evolved Caveman. Since 2002, he has provided you with scientifically supported executive coaching and organizational consulting to make the most of your personal and professional potential. I'm joined with the executive coach and founder, Dr. John. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me, Gary. Great to be here.
Share with us a little bit how this story got started for you and how you got involved in the industry.
Well, I was trained as a school psychologist at Berkeley and figured out pretty quickly I didn't want to be in the public school system. There were some things going on there that I had a hard time with, and so I had to reinvent myself and got into positive psychology about 2005. And when I got into positive psychology, I realized, wow, I've got tools to turn down the volume on the negative thoughts, emotions, and tools to turn up the volume on the positive thoughts and emotions. And I thought, this is great. Now I have a way to coach people towards a successful and happy life, because I started questioning that concept of success at the age of 17 and was really asking myself, like, where is there room in this idea of success for things like happiness, relaxation, contentment, that sort of thing. And it took me many years to find the answer, but now I've got the answers that I share with a number of clients.
I mean, back at the beginning of man, there were no boardrooms. Heck, there weren't even bedrooms to conquer. Today, men continue to evolve. I mean, why is the mindset and training that you provide maybe more in need today than ever before?
Well, for me, it goes back to this man box culture that we grow up in, and it's how we're socialized as boys and how we understand the rules of what it means to be a, quote, real man. Things like be aggressive, be tough, don't back down, compete, be the provider, be stoic, be self-reliant. And there's some good and there's some bad in there, depending on how far you take it. But the biggest one to me is the one that's be stoic. In other words, don't feel. And come to find out, as I'm working with adult men, 2/3 of our emotional spectrum have been cut off by insults that we get at a young age. And basically the insults, I won't say them here, but you know them. They're things like don't be a little girl, and they're kind of the idea of the message is don't be feminine. On the other side, if you show too many positive emotions, you'll get something like, to put it politely, don't be homosexual. And we get that a few times, and I think we jump back into this man box. And we've learned really quickly that there's certain emotions we can't show. And so what are we left with that we can publicly demonstrate? I would say it's three things. It's lust, because that signals that I'm straight. It's stress, because that says to some extent I'm busy and important. And the big one, anger, some degree of anger, irritation, annoyance, frustration. And most of our emotions as a man get channeled through that anger lens. And we don't even know that it's taking place.
I mean, you have been a coach, a speaker, an executive for over 2 decades. I mean, whether it's sports or in business, does a coach kind of really bring out the best in a person, elevate them beyond maybe what they could have done by themselves?
Yeah, I think the idea is to optimize performance, satisfaction with life, relationships. And I like the idea of a coach in the sense that I'm not necessarily a psychologist. My clients aren't broken. My clients aren't patients. My clients are looking to get better and perform better in some way. And I've loved that idea. And I think the men that come to see me can relax into that idea a lot more easily.
I mean, you utilize the very best of research-based tools and methods to help your clients. What is scientifically supported coaching? What does that mean for your clients?
It means that the tools that I teach are backed by research. And that was drilled into me really strongly in the PhD program at Cal. And so I've done radio shows, I've done a podcast, I've taught a lot of people. And I think that at least in the beginning of my career, it had to be scientifically backed. It had to be research based. As I've gotten a little bit older, I will also incorporate some more spiritual teachings, I guess I could say. I've learned at the age, I'm 55 now. At my age, I've realized that if something's been around for 3, 4, 5,000 years and it's stuck with us, that there might be some legs to it, and maybe science is just a little slow to catch up. So now it's a little bit of both.
You have created a guide to self. As I myself, I've worked with many professionals, and even for myself, what you said, anxiety and anger. I mean, these are common emotions. Many of us experience those daily. For me, in high school or college, emotional intelligence was just not taught. Does that happen to be the case, and what you find?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as men, as boys, we are socialized in the opposite direction, right? To even dip our toe into things like emotional awareness, emotional granularity, emotional vocabulary, relationship, communication, sympathy, empathy, nurturing. Like, we get mocked and ridiculed for going in that direction most of the time. Now, not by everyone, but it doesn't take everyone. It just takes your peers a few times to say, dude, what are you doing? And we're like, oh, I guess I'm not supposed to do that. And it turns us in the other direction. So, I mean, think of how you grew up with your young friends, with young males. It's all put downs, one-upmanship, criticism, and like your mom jokes. Like, there's no depth, there's no real connection there. It's all put downs.
Definitely so. I mean, the goal is to be happy at home, the goal is to be happy at work. Can the two actually exist at the same time? And have we kind of been conditioned to, have we been kind of conditioned to think that it's either one or the other and maybe not both at the same time?
Well, I think it's a really difficult balancing act. And I think part of this depends on how meaningful do you find your work. And then if you find your work meaningful, which is somewhat rare, then you've got to balance that meaning and the passion that you have at work with spending enough time and attention with your children and spouse at home. Because, I mean, time and attention are the currency of relationship. And I think, one of the mistakes we make as men is we want to be the provider, which I have no problem with that. But we get into the workforce at, I don't know, let's say mid 20s, and we start working and we want to provide for our wife and then eventually our family. And the very thing that we set out to do, the very people we set out to provide for, ultimately get the short end of the stick because we lose ourselves in work. And we get our ego stroked. We know what's expected of us there. We're admired. We know what to do. But then we go home and it's not quite the same. And so we find ourselves spending more and more time at work, and the people at home become more resentful and angry and irritable.
Explained very well. I mean, you teach and believe that true success is the attainment of both boardroom, bedroom, which makes sense because one highly affects the other. Happy wife, happy life. Do the spouses of your clients notice the difference after your training? What has been the feedback a little bit there?
Well, oftentimes it's the spouses getting the men in to see me. And once the men come in, they really enjoy it. But the spouses notice feedback or notice improvement in some of these areas relatively quickly, 3, 4, 5 weeks. Part of it is just things that we haven't been taught before. My approach is mostly psychoeducational, which means that I'm teaching a lot. How do you figure out what you feel in the moment? How do you communicate better with your wife? How do you become a better lover? I mean, how do you pull away from that command and control style of leadership at work? I mean, there's all these different avenues that we can go down in order to improve the success and happiness in individuals' lives.
Interesting. I mean, so how we are conditioned or socialized, that's not our fault. Yet it is our
Correct.
responsibility to learn new tools to be at our best in our relationships. So, how do you deliver your training? Is this done one on one, in groups, in person, courses, virtually, online, or possibly a little bit of all? Explain to me how that's
All of
delivered.
the above.
So I do most of my work one-on-one, and lately it's been done via Zoom, so it's with people all over the world. I also do groups. Right now I've got a couple virtual groups going on, men's groups. I also have a monthly men's dinner. I also do online anger management courses, anxiety management courses, positive psychology courses. Those are not live in person, those are pre-recorded. And then there's, some books online as well.
Interesting. I mean, let's be honest, men wear masks. And these masks have kept us from living an authentic, happy, inspiring, purposeful, and connected lives. With effective and time tested training that you're providing and these tools, can the masks be removed once and for all? And is that a result that you've experienced with some of your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a movement going on, at least nationwide, if not worldwide, to affect this kind of change. And It's interesting because we are talking about men becoming more emotionally aware and more communicative. And the I guess one of the problems we faced is that the females' expectations for marriage have switched dramatically in the past 50 years. So 50, 60 years ago, when the pill came in and gave them reproductive freedom, when they got more into the workforce, they got financial freedom, they didn't need men as much for the financial arrangement that was marriage. And their expectations for a romantic partner started to shift. So then they wanted more sympathy, empathy, communication, a good listener, someone who's supportive. And the problem is, nobody ever told us. And we're not socialized in that direction. So I do like the idea that it's not our fault. It is our responsibility to evolve if you want to be happy. And we know that a big part of happiness, one of the foundational pillars, is a good romantic relationship.
Definitely a foundation needs to be put in place. As men, we become masters of really saving face and not masters of self. The Guide to Self book that you wrote answers the question, can I be happy? Tell me about the success of this award-winning book a little bit.
Well, basically, that was my attempt to put the tools that I had learned into a book form so that people could learn how to turn down the volume on anger, anxiety, guilt, shame, sadness, and how to turn up the volume on things like meaning, purpose, contentment, relaxation, happiness, joy, awe, wonder, and so on. And I think part of the problem is we really don't know what we feel. I mean, the average man can name 3 emotions in their body. That's it. And it's something like happy, sad, mad. And I was going to say the problem is that, our spouses, assuming heterosexuality, want us to be able to converse in that language. They want to be validated for how they feel, for example. Well, if we don't have an emotional vocabulary, we have a really hard time doing that.
When I read the reviews online, I would have to say that your attempt, you did very well because people seem to gravitate towards the book. Online, you have Dr. John's shop. It has courses on many areas that relate to men. Is that kind of a good starting point for people, or as a consultation, what you recommend? I mean, how do people get started, basically?
What I've tried to do, I think, my whole career is take tools from research and simplify them so that everyone can make sense and make use of them. And so it really depends on your price point. And, I've tried to offer products at different price points so that people of all incomes can find an entry point. So if money is a concern to you, there's online courses that give you my best tools. If, you're set on money, come see me one-on-one. If, you want to dial it back a little bit, how about a group? I'm always trying to look for ways to, and if you have no money, listen to the podcast, The Evolved Caveman. So I'm just trying to get the tools out there to more people, because I really think that the more people have these tools, the better place the world becomes. And like I did the online anger management course 15, 16 years ago. And to date, about 18,000 people have gone through that course, a fact of which I'm really, really proud, because I think that is making a small dent in the world. And someone years ago asked me, well, what if someone steals the course? I'm like, well, okay, then it's stolen and some other people get access to the tools. Like, I'm not that concerned about, they're not my tools necessarily. They just need to get out there to a broader audience.
Excellent. So basically, like you say, depend on where you're at, what your price point is there. You can read the book from yourself, or you can meet with yourself one-on-one. Mm-hmm. Obviously, get a customized approach that is unlike anything as far as getting a podcast or whatnot. But you provide some great tools out there really for everyone. You have been a PhD and a coach for over 2 decades. You've worked with Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, CEOs, elite athletes, and high net worth individuals. Your passion really is the intersection of high performance, success, and happiness. Does this work continue to be rewarding for you, and is it really kind of your happy place?
I love it. It gives me great meaning and purpose. So even on days where I'm in a not very good mood, let's say, I can go to work and work buoys me. Work helps me out. And I love the clients that I have. We generally have a really good time. There's a lot of laughter, a lot of fun, a lot of playfulness. And the work fills me up. I mean, like if you think of having a negative bucket of emotions and a positive bucket of emotions, generally the clients I have fill up my bucket of positive emotions. Not always, but generally.
That is excellent. We're definitely glad to share your story with everyone out there. Viewers, if you take a look at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see their website. On the website, you can learn more about Dr. John's mission. I mean, the site really is full of resources, and courses are available online. You can also subscribe to his podcast where you can tune in. I mean, if you're ready to experience work and home happiness, simply click the Work With Me button right there on the home page. You owe it to yourself and your loved ones. Man, really, we've been sold a bill of goods that wealth is the pathway to success. We should know by now that that is not really the case. It's part of the equation. But with Dr. John and his guide to self-help, you can learn the proven tools to perform at your peak. From the boardroom to the bedroom. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV. And if you don't know, now you know.